Today is 8th of May 2026. Apologies for starting a bit behind schedule. All right, so let's go straight into what we have. This morning by 8 a.m., the European Central Bank President Lagarde is going to give a speech. It may affect the Euro pairs and any other pair. So we need to trade a lot with caution around that time. And by 1:20 p.m. today, the Bank of England Governor Bailey will also give a speech. I will want us to also be cautious in the market around this period. But then the biggest event today is the average hourly earnings, non-farm employment change, and the unemployment rate from the United States by 1:30. And it will run simultaneously with the employment change and unemployment rate from Canada. Now, we are not really going to focus on Canada. The focus is usually the United States, essentially for our live trading session. But if you feel you want to trade the Canadian dollar simultaneously, well, that's an independent decision. For us, our focus on a day like this is usually the United States dollar. But then I'll show you my outlook on the Canadian dollar, like this morning, because if I will even focus more on that, because on NFP days, we like to hold on till the time for live trading to tell you what will happen on the dollar so that we don't jump ahead of time. Later by 3 p.m. There'll be prelim UM consumer sentiment from US and prelim UAM inflation expectation both from the US, but all those ones we're not really concerned about that. Our major focus is the NFP, and like I said this morning, I'll show you my outlook for the Canadian dollar. Possibly it may start moving before the release of the data by 1:30, and you may want to make place a trade on the Canadian dollar. All right, so let's go straight to the charts and let's have a look at what's happening to the CAD. All right, I'll start with the key one, which is the CAD CHF. When we're talking about the Canadian dollar for news trading, two major instruments we always look at is the CAD CHF and the CAD JPY. Reason is because these are the pairs that contains the Canadian dollar as the base currency. So whichever direction they're facing is what the Canadian dollar is expected to even go into. So for the CAD CHF this morning, I'm seeing we have an overall bullish trend with a minor support here. With the uptrend, we know we're looking for a buy trade. With the support is still pointing to the same direction. So overall, we are bullish on the Canadian dollar this morning. And if you flip down to, you can see the support on the 4 hour is clearer that we have a valid support on the 4 hour, which is still an indication of an uptrend. If you flip down to 1 hour time frame, we can clearly see the formation of an inverse head and shoulder pattern on the Canadian dollar this morning, and that is a final indication of an expected bullish breakout on the CAD CHF. So we'll just draw our neckline region somewhere here. Price is expected to break out above the neckline. Okay, somebody is saying he's not seeing my chart. Is that everybody's experience? Please, if you can see my chart, type a yes. If you cannot see my chart, please type a no. Mr. Adekoye Shegun, I don't know which one you are responding to. Okay, thank you, Mr. Paul. Paul SLFM is saying yes. That means they're all seeing my chat. So that means you should check your neck. Thank you, Mr. Daniel Essen. So the person that made that observation should. That's Mr. Matthew. Mr. Matthew, please check your network. My chat is on. So it could be from your end, or maybe you log out and log in again. Thanks to those who responded. So well, I'm clearly seeing an inverse head and shoulder forming on the CAD CHF ahead of the release of the employment change, unemployment rate and unemployment change from Canada. So if price breaks out above the neckline region, we are going to trigger a buy on this instrument, and this can produce as much as about, let's see, some. Usually, CAD CHF is not a volatile instrument, so if you're looking for volatility, honestly, this is not the pair. But then if you want safety, wow, it's a good one. It's always safe, it won't spike too much, and it hardly blows account if you're trading it. But in terms of volatility, it's not so volatile. All right, to Fibonacci, 50 can give as much as 11 pips. Fibonacci 61.8 can give 19 pips, and Fibonacci 70.6 about 31 pips. So we're looking at between 11 and 30 pips on this instrument in the course of today, all things being equal. We are bullish on the CAC CHF. But if you want more action, you may want to look at least the CAC CHF has given us the overall direction. See, when we want to trade news, direction matters a lot. If I is the most important thing. If you get it wrong, then your trade may as well just go all bad. But if you want some action, we can look at the NZD card, which is going to go opposite the direction of the CAD CHF. So if the data comes out bullish for the CAD CHF, in that case, we're looking at buying the CAD CHF, but on the NZD card, we may look at selling the NZD card. Now, for the NZD card on the daily time frame, you can see price hit a previous support turned resistance. So we're going to be selling because for the NZD card, the Canadian dollar is a quote currency, not the base. So we are going to go straight down to 1 hour. On the daily, we have an overall bearish outlook. On the 4 hour, 1 hour. So on the 1 hour, we're having the head and shoulder pattern, and that tells you that we're very much correct based on the fact that the CAD CHF is bullish. So NZD card will be bearish. For the CAD CHF, the card is the base currency, so it's bullish. For the NZD card, the card is a quote currency. So while CAD CHF is bullish, NZD card is expected to be bearish. So for the NZD card, we have our neckline region right here where price is expected to break out below for us to trigger a sell. All right. So anytime price breaks out, either before the news or after the news, you may just look at taking a sell. Once price breaks out below the neckline region, below this axis, once there's a breakout below this axis, you can take that's let me just look at the price level. Anytime you see price breakout below 0.80998, then it's time to take a sell. Though you need other confirmation, which will have aligned up your RSI below 50, your MACD below 0. Those are further confirmations. Now, to the closest Fibonacci level, which is 38.2, can give as much as 15 pips there. Fibonacci 50 can produce as much as 36 pips, and Fibonacci 1.8 can give as much as 55 pips. All right, so between 17 and did I say 17? 15 pips and 55 pips. It's a little more than what we're expecting on the card CHF. But the truth about head and shoulder pattern is that in most instances, price actually may still proceed to the recent low in most cases. Will it happen this time? I can't say, but usually when you have a head and shoulder pattern, the targets usually can go as far as the recent low. But let's just the conservative with our Fibonacci tools and look for between 17 to 55 pips or beyond that on the NZD card. All right, so that's my outlook uh, on the Canadian dollar for the news we're expecting this afternoon. Like I said, this trigger can happen before the release of the news. It can happen before the release of the news. So it all depends. If it happens before the release of the news, please feel free to take a sell on the NZD card. Let's trade the NZD card. Then that's just from a purely technical perspective. And if the data lines up with it, which most likely will happen, then that would drive the price downwards. All right, I've given us my outlook on the NZD card CHF. Then I'm looking closely from a purely technical angle. I'm looking at the Euro NZD. Now the thing is this, if you want to trade the Euro NZD, then I advise you don't trade the NZD card. You just focus on the maybe the card CHF and the Euro NZD so that you don't complicate things. So don't place a sell on NZD card and a buy on Euro NZD. No, that can have some consequences. It's just best to face one direction with these pairs. All right, for the Euro NZD, we have an overall bullish trend. The candle that closed yesterday closed as a rejection candle. I'll zoom it out now. can see it closed as a rejection candle. So on the daily time frame, we have a bullish outlook on the Euro NZD. On the 4 hour, we really don't have a corresponding support, and it's really not a problem. At times, you don't have such kind of setup, so you trade what you see. But then on the 4 hour, right on the 4 hour, I'm seeing an inverse head and shoulder forming, which is an indication of a potential bullish breakout. So we'll go to 1 hour time frame. So we're expecting a bullish breakout. That's the inverse head and shoulder forming on the Euro NZD. And we are really expecting a bullish breakout on this instrument in the course of the day. Again, this can happen before the news, or the news or NFP can trigger it anyhow it goes. But we are very bullish on the Euro NZD. And price profit projection on this can go as high as about 30 pips to Fibonacci 50, about 61 pips to Fibonacci 61.8, and as much as about 100 pips of Fibonacci 70.6. So between 30 and 100 pips movement is expected in the course of the day. And if the volatility is much, like I said earlier, if it's head and shoulder versus head and shoulder, price can as well still target the recent high. But like I said, it's not guaranteed. But if the volatility is really strong, that may happen. But on the average, we can capture between 30 and 70 pips on this particular instrument. Sorry, 30 pips and 100 pips, between 30 and 100 pips on the Euro NZD. All right, so finally, I'll take a look at gold. Now, I won't really be talking about the dollar so much. I'll just show you a few things. The main analysis for the dollar will be during the NFP session in the afternoon, so we don't always like to jump ahead of that. All right, if you joined my analysis yesterday, I told you that overall, I have a very, very long-term bullish outlook on gold. The overall trend is bullish from the daily time frame, and on the 4 hour price broke a double bottom pattern. Price broke the neckline. And I said price was targeting a previous support turn resistance from where I'm expecting price to drop to this previous support level. That has happened from where I'm expecting a breakout to the upside. And it's just playing out exactly as I've said. I'm expecting price. Now, the goal is actually to buy gold because China is buying up gold from the market, and that is creating, a lot of market reaction. There's a huge demand for gold at this time, and that will increase price because gold will become scarce for other buyers. So price is expected to shoot up. So I said I expected price to a test, and retest this place, retracement to this minor support, and a breakout upwards. So let's watch out in the course of today. Price is on the uptrend, but then I'm not saying you should take a buy now until price breaks this price level at 4752.83. That's when we can trigger a buy on gold. And if that happens, gold is expected to move as much as close to like 1,000 pips. Not necessarily in a day, it might take some days or a week, but the target is this zone up here. That's where price is expected to go, except if market dynamics changes, maybe fundamentals change, because currently there's still issues going on between United States and Iran as regards the Strait of Hormuz. They are yet to reach an agreement. All those could still play some dynamics out of it, but currently with what is happening in the market, I maintain a bullish outlook on gold. All right, that will be all from my analysis this morning. Please don't forget to join us by 1 p.m. for NFP live trading. I'm sorry, I won't be able to take any question this morning. I need to go now. Take care. See you by 1 p.m. for NFP. Have a great day. Bye bye.